All of these are some of the comments I have seen in my Berserk chapter analysis videos, and doing further research it was not difficult to find out that these types of comments have been appearing all over the Berserk community. Interestingly, these comments and opinions are not emphasizing on the story being exactly bad or poorly written, but rather extremely depressing and sad. And overall, this has caused some uncertainty and concern regarding the upcoming final arc for Berserk that will mark an end to this manga. Will we get that happy ending that we have all wished for so long? Will Guts finally get justice and be happy? What can we expect from the final arc now that the original and beloved author Kentaro Miura is no longer with us? These questions have been haunting us Berserk fans as we have approached the end of the Fantasia arc and are getting closer to a new concluding arc. And as sad as it is, the reality might be that from now on, there will always be this uncertainty within the community, and we will never be satisfied with Berserk's continuation after Kentaro Miura's passing. It seems we are going to be stuck with the thought of what Berserk could have been. What Berserk could have been if only Kentaro Miura was there to finish it. The new chapters following after 364, which was Kentaro Miura's last published chapter, have had quite some backlash as expected from any continuation without the original author being involved. Throughout the 6 new chapters, the criticism has mostly been focusing on the art. And well, this was not unexpected at all, since Kentaro Miura's art style is on a league of its own. But now that more chapters have been published, and readers got a better idea of how things are seemingly going to play out and proceed for Berserk, as it is continued with Kojimori as the lead and the new studio, the criticism has now switched focus to the story itself. And this is what we are going to be discussing throughout this video. As a side note, it is evident that the art has improved with each release, and it seems like it will continue to get better and better as more chapters get published. Yet in this video, as the comments shown have hinted at, we're going to discuss Berserk's fate or direction story-wise that will directly impact the final arc, since art style can be changed and improved in a short term, but story is a much more complex element that may cause some dissatisfaction in the long run. The continuation chapters have generated a specific fear, that being the fear for a good ending. As the new chapters have shown, the story is still as depressing and sad as ever, which brings concern to the story's track or path, and questioning the possibility for a desirable ending. And although some of the comments and opinions might be seen as toxic, they are justifiable. They are not wrong when describing the hopeless situation Guts was left at during the events that took place between chapter 365 and 371. A lot, or dare I say the majority of readers, are expecting or want a satisfying or relative happy ending for Guts, and the end of the Elfhelm section, concluding the Fantasia arc, backtrack that possibility for Guts, leaving the community wondering what the final arc will provide and bring us. Positively, in a good note, it has been stated that the story of Berserk will continue from chapter 364 with notes, sketches, drafts, and everything else that Kentaro Miura left behind, as well as the conversations he had with Kojimori, who will lead the new team. And since the studio has decided to continue Berserk, it would hint that Kentaro Miura has already left the ending of the story as well. So are all our worries for Berserk's future resolved knowing this? And the answer is not exactly a yes. Unfortunately, even if in the best case scenario all of the story was left by Kentaro Miura, we will still not get his specific ending. To understand the situation a little better, even if he would have written everything down including the ending, we would never get what Kentaro Miura would have delivered himself. This is because when writing a story, throughout the whole process, many elements from the story get changed or even get rid of entirely and replaced. The writing process for every author is very complex. Some ideas come all of a sudden at random or different stages, whether it is during the brainstorming, drafting, or even during the writing of the final version. And, knowing Kentaro Miura, being a perfectionist, he might have needed or required a lot of revisions to his work in order to achieve his level of excellence. And this is not even considering the artistic aspect, since we are destined to only witness an imitation of Kentaro Miura's style from now on, leaving us with only one remaining element from him, that being his story. And the term story only refers to specific ideas, lore details, plot points, character introductions / deaths and such. It does not include Kentaro Miura's writing style, which is also outstanding. We have seen a lot of poetic lines and phrases mixed or aided and accompanied with scenery and panel composition that give that berserk feeling that can only be accomplished by the author himself. All in all, this means we're going to be stuck with that one question and thought in our heads from now on. Imagine, what could have happened? What Berserk could have been if Kentaro Miura was still alive? This right here hits different or has more meaning knowing that this is the final stage of Berserk, the final arc. From interviews we know that about 80% of the story must be completed by now, and it shows. Besides the new studio stating the new arc starts on chapter 372, the story seems to be going and heading into a final act where all mysteries, themes, characters and events collide into a final memorable arc. From Skull Knight's past, Guts and Griffith's rivalry, Casca's resolve, Ricker's crew involving Silad, the Tapasa and Daiba among many other stuff. A final arc that has the possibility of being a perfect ending, a perfect finale. But unfortunately, even when the story of Berserk ends, we will still think ourselves that same question over and over again. It will keep replaying. Imagine, what could have happened? What could have happened if only he was with us? This saddening question that will linger for eternity as long as Berserk is read and encountered by many more people as years pass by, is in a sense fitting for Berserk. As Skull Knight might say, could this be act of causality itself? Was Berserk ever meant to have an end? Was Berserk meant to be a constant suffering for those who read it and immerse themselves into this world and story? This makes more sense when reading chapter 364, which feels like an ending in a way, even though it is not. It seems very coincidental that this specific chapter, with the reunion of Griffith, Guts and Casca, alongside with Griffith's speech and thoughts as the final lines, ended up being Kentaro Miura's last published chapter. Even when this legacy of Kentaro Miura would be completed with his notes and discussions with Kojimori, that question still surges every time. What could it have been? How would it be if Miura were the one to end the story? How many ideas were left out? How many panels, how many scenes, encounters, fights, backstories have we missed that only Kentaro Miura himself could have come up with? And sadly, there is no way to solve this. Even when Berserk's final arc happens to be a 10 out of 10, there will always be that thought of it could have been better if only he was there to end it. So, what's the answer? What can we as mere readers do? Well, there are some paths. Some could just stop at chapter 364 and judge the rest as if it doesn't count. And it is true. From this point on, there will be two different Berserk eras, Kentaro Miura's and post-Miura Berserk. Eventually, both are part of Berserk, and as I stated before, Berserk, perhaps, was meant to be like this by causality itself, as sad as it sounds. But if we have learned something from Berserk, it is the idea and mindset of struggling and moving forward. Relating this sad situation to the actual story itself, just as Guts looks back at those days with the Band of the Hawk, we as readers look back at when Miura was still with us. Guts, just as us, thinks to himself, what could have happened if everything stayed as it was, if the eclipse never happened? And, just as Guts, our eclipse as readers was marked by Kentaro Miura's passing. But we still have some hope. Even though things will never be as they used to, as much as we wish for it, there is still hope. For us, Berserk will never be the same, and for Guts, his relationship with Casca will never be the same. But she is still alive. Even when her mental state will never be the same as before, she is still alive, and Guts must do anything to make the best out of the situation. We must also look at the bright side. Even when Berserk will never be as it used to be, it's still here with us. And just as Guts pursues that day where things might end up for good, we as readers must also give Berserk a chance to get the proper ending it deserves. We must follow this story till the very end. It might not be as it used to be, but we can't let that affect us. We must be grateful for what we have, and in this case that is the opportunity for its continuation and the ending it deserves. Let's look forward to a proper epic and emotional final arc that meets our expectations and a continuation that follows this long yet beautiful story of a man who suffers like no other, loves as no other, fights as no other, struggles as no other, hoping for a peaceful day that seems to be impossible or unattainable with causality, destiny, and God against him. That character is Guts, the Black Swordsman, the man who has impacted millions and whose story will be remembered as long as people keep immersing themselves in such wonderfully crafted work by the legend himself, the man known as Kentaro Miura.